Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Today is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. This week just flew by like crazy, so hold on to your butts for the rest of October. Today I'm going to be using the Nightmare Before Christmas tarot deck. I don't know, I just had a nudge while I was in the shower, honestly, TMI, to use this deck today. And I was like, really? It's a little bit early, but I mean, it is, but it isn't, because pardon me, that it's a Christmas season movie, but it's also a Halloween theme. If Nightmare, I think everybody kind of knows Jack the Pumpkin King, the Skeleton King, and he wants to do something different with his life, and he comes across Santa Christmas Town in his wandering to, I guess, find himself. And from his encounter with Christmas Town, he has this inspiration, I suppose, to be Santa Claus in his own way. And of course, it's just pretty much a disaster because Jack is not supposed to be Santa Claus. Jack is supposed to be the Skeleton King. So whenever I feel a nudge, well, first of all, I got these cards last year, like right at the end, toward the end of Christmas season. So I only really got a chance to use them like I think once or twice, honestly, and I may have pulled them out off season once or something like that. Because for me, Christmas could be all year round if I, as far as I'm concerned, like literally, I'll feel the urge to play some Christmas music and will do so. But this year, I have now all through this Halloween season, which is already upon us, and then I can still justifiably use them up until and through Christmas. So I'll probably pick them up a few more times because I just love it. That's one of my favorite movies. I love the soundtrack. I do love the cards. Sometimes I get a little lost in the story of the movie when I'm channeling. So, give me some grace on that. I'll try to keep it concise. But the thing I wanted to point out while I was kind of doing a pre-shuffle, at first I was going to pre-shuffle to get a preview from my traditional tarot, but once I started shuffling these cards, because I haven't touched them since the last time I used them, I started getting messages, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is where the pre-shuffle the message is coming from. And it's some concept of dueling dimensions that came up, because as I said in the movie, you have Halloween Town and you have Christmas Town, and then you had the clash of the two. I didn't even hear that before. You had the clash of the two, but what I was really seeing it from is the perspective of Jack, who came up as the fool multiple times, but kind of in a derogatory sense, or in a detrimental sense, I should say, because his new journey, so to speak, or he kind of had lost himself, is what I'm trying to get to. And his wandering kind of put him in a purgatory state before he happened upon Christmas Town. And even when he did, it's like he thought he had found some evolved like aspect of himself, but really he really kind of sold his soul in a strange way. Like in a strange way, he sold his soul for something that seemed to be more exciting, the grass being greener type of vibe. And not only did he kind of sell himself out and his true identity out, but he damaged a lot of other people too, because Christmas Town didn't, at first anyway, didn't get the Christmas that they were supposed to have. Halloween Town was rocked to at its foundation and at its core, because they were trying to readjust to this concept of Christmas that was foreign to them and that they really, had no jurisdiction in. So it was just like one man had such a profound impact on so many other people just on account of one character, I guess I should say. But one character has such a deep impact on so many other people, maybe even innocent people in a sense, just on account of not being true to himself. Like he took so many people down with him. Now, fortunately, there's more of a happy ending in The Nightmare Before Christmas, because he course corrects and he returned Santa back to his rightful position, and they saved Christmas just in the nick of time, and so on and so forth. And Jack reclaims his true identity, but just barely. You know what I mean? Just barely. So I heard this message about dueling dimensions, and definitely something about a purgatory, or maybe a dark night of the soul, which essentially is kind of what Jack went through to ultimately come back to his original self. That whole uh, journey through wandering and then happening upon Christmas Town and trying to take on that identity and then coming back to himself. That's kind of like what the Dark Night of the Soul can be, in a caricature sense of the experience, for sure. But yeah, and then I was more specifically seeing energies, like I said, that just thought that, it was one particular theme that stood out, and it was in the cards where, like, Jack left his gifts behind, like he had everything already set up for him. He had his position of power, influence, he had admiration from the citizens in Halloween Town, he had a purpose, a drive. He had support, he even had a love interest who he paid dust until, the damn near the very end. There were all these gifts that it's like Jack had taken for granted, that were already in his possession, that were already precious, but he was dissatisfied with them. So that's what led him on to this journey to find something better, something greater. But he left so much behind and almost, forfeited so much in the process. So like I said, in the case of the movie, there's a happy ending. It remains to be seen for in real life situations where people are realizing that the grass is not in fact greener for whatever it is that they were chasing or idolizing, and the journey back to true identity seems to be, a challenging one, a much more challenging one than perhaps it was to get to where they ended up. Like it took Jack just a little wandering and a few steps to get to find his way into Christmas Town, where he didn't belong ultimately, or he could have been a visitor, but he should have seen his way out. But to undo all of the drama and trauma and trouble he caused himself and two different worlds, two different dimensions, so to speak, that was a much heftier charge, and it was much easier said than done. And at the end, he ended up being very sorrowful. Right before the transition of the ending, he ended up being very sorrowful for what he did at all, like just wishing he had stayed in his lane, pretty much. So anyway, take that as it resonates. Of course, I'm speaking of it symbolically through the story, but we'll see where the cards go. And this, by the way, is the box, and I got these on Amazon, I believe, if you're interested. So I didn't still see the bottom real quick. Knight of Presents. That's so crazy. Yeah, Knight of Presents, which is the Knight of Pentacles in this deck. So yeah, it's like he was on a mission for, to look for this golden pinnacle, like on a journey to retrieve this precious Um, I don't know. I'm getting it like a precious gift that he didn't think he already possessed, but lo and behold, he had it the whole time. You know what I mean? So, but let's see what we got. And I think that's one of the elves that is this one. Yeah, because his hat, he's looking a little janky. I don't think, or it could be I don't know. I'm not sure if this is one of the elves that actually, it might be one of the elves that actually was from Christmas Town, not the ones that, that transformed into makeshift elves from Halloween. Yeah. Oh, 5 of Candles. And these are the shady characters that Jack got mixed up with to pretty much kidnap Santa Claus. Kidnap the Santa Claus. I want to do it. Let's draw straws. I like that song too. That's Oogie Boogie's boys, and they were up to no good, but they were like the henchmen. Yeah, they were literally Oogie Boogie's henchmen. Like they carried out his dirty work, his dirty deeds, his minions, so to speak. And Oogie Boogie, if you don't know, was like the villain of the town, kinda like he was the boogeyman. I guess if there is a such thing, I guess if there is a such thing as a villain in Halloween, because they're all kind of ghouly and everything, it would have been him, who was like, the antagonist more or less, and he was threatened by the Oogie Boogie was threatened by the gossip, like the talk of the town about this so-called Sandy Claus, because that's what, after the word circulated around, he wasn't Santa Claus, he was Sandy Claus, and had telephoned into some, creepy creature that ultimately Oogie Boogie was threatened by. And so when Jack enlisted his henchmen to do his dirty work, which was ultimately to bring Santa Claus to him. And that's the thing, because I think Jack was the one that actually miscommunicated that, because he didn't have the full information. He called him Sandy Claus, and so everybody else thought that that's what he was. But when he sent these kids out to go, these are like some evil trick-or-treaters, to go out and capture Santa Claus, I don't think it was, I mean, of course, the execution wasn't great, but I don't think it was to do harm to Santa Claus. He kind of wanted to bring him in kind of as a point of reference, and ultimately to, obviously, here it is, switch identities. You know what I mean? Like, well, I can't be, there can't be two Santa Clauses. If he's going to be, if I'm going to be it, then I need to bring him here. But he wanted them to keep him safe, no harm, no foul, just, bring him here, and so that I can step into his shoes. So this is giving the energy of somebody that may have started out with somewhat modest, I won't say pure, I'll say modest intentions, just really self-serving, not considering all of the angles that could potentially affect everyone else. But they saw an opportunity, definitely heavy on the opportunist vibe. They saw an opportunity, and without really considering initially, or at least, or at worst, caring about the consequences, they took it, and they enlisted anything and anyone that they could to help them execute it. In this case, they got involved. Could have gotten involved with some really questionable characters or questionable energies to achieve the success or the outcome that they were looking for. And they, more or less, what Jack did, he got in over his head, because he couldn't control what the henchmen were really going to do. They had their own agenda, more or less, because they answered to Oogie Boogie, not really to Jack. So although they were supposed to bring Santa Claus to Jack, where he more or less would have been safe, unharmed at least, they took their orders from Oogie Boogie, who said, "Bring Sandy Claus to me." And so they did. And of course, Santa Claus was in much more grave danger in Oogie Boogie's possession than he would have been otherwise. So it's like when you get mixed up with shady characters, or as I said, I did say something about selling your soul. Like, you consider it even with with entertainment. You just want to share your gifts, and you, for the life of me, once the rumors of, let's say, Bad Boy, and I love Bad Boy, I really like the era of Bad Boy's prime was my prime. So there's still some affinity for music and things that came out of that era that I still love, and artists and stuff. But when you started hearing the rumors about how the artists were getting treated, and I heard some things firsthand. I won't say from what artist that I actually had connection to when I lived in New York, but I heard some things that were firsthand accounts of what could be expected under that regime, or under that label. And it wasn't even the worst of things that have come out, but it was enough to know that there could be some truth to other things. But when you hear that, it makes you think, like, why do people keep signing with him? Every artist you can see, they have a great catalog. They have, an iconic staple in music. Most of them is what you can definitely give Bad Boy, but they don't usually have much money to show for it. They don't own much of their artistry after the fact. It's kind of, you get used up by Bad Boy, and maybe they'll call you back every now and again for a reunion or a hot take or whatever. But for the most part, like, once you're done, and that's it. So how do people keep signing on? But it's because of the sheer hope of fulfilling a dream, that you don't feel like you can otherwise. Like, you literally sacrifice yourself to the possibility of fulfilling a long standing dream, or once in a lifetime opportunity that you feel like you can't pass up because you may not get it anywhere else, when really it's probably the worst thing that could ever happen to you, or the worst of the most ideal situation that you would want to have manifested. But you don't really know that until you're in the thick of it, or after it's pretty much chewed you up and spit you out. So that's where we are with this Five of Candles. Like, it's definitely people that are considering, like, damn, I shouldn't have got mixed up with those people. I shouldn't have, believed in that vision, or tributed myself to that cause, whatever it is. What the ideal that was started, in terms of what the benefit would be, or what the reward would be, has paled so far in comparison to what has turned out to be, that it doesn't even balance out. It doesn't even match out. It's like more fighting and chaos and conflict than anything. And it's like, I could have just stayed home, or I just could have stayed out of it, or I could have gone another way, or I could have done it myself even, you know what I mean? Even if it was the so-called long and hard way. Like, maybe if Jack had wandered himself a little bit farther along, or he could have even taken the inspiration from Christmas Town and somehow what do you call it, integrated that spark of light, which is what he was ultimately attracted to, the light and the bliss and the joy of the town. He could have integrated that light back in Halloween Town without completely infringing upon what they had going on, let alone literally trying to destiny swap with poor old Santa Claus to take his position and leave Santa to what? Halloween next year, you know what I mean? Because that's the thing. Halloween had already passed when he was dissatisfied with it when he tried to pretty much hijack Christmas. And it's almost even a sense of greed, you know what I mean? Like you dog with a bone type of energy where you already have what you need in your mouth, but you see something that appears to be bigger and better, and you want that too. And then ultimately you could risk losing it all, or losing what you had, because what, the bone in the water reflection is an illusion. It's not real. So a lot of people are like waking up. Is this too many? No, it's only two. So a lot of people, Judgment, are waking up to the illusions that they have subscribed to, realizing that it's either not all it was cracked up to be, or it wasn't what was promised. It didn't give what was calculated to be returned. It costs too much of a sacrifice, even if it does yield the return that was anticipated or promised. There's way too much to give of self, or to give up to fully receive it. I forgot these cards are so slippery. Which is going to somewhat drive me crazy, but we're going to get it together. Yeah, even reconsidering, like, this is like Santa Claus here making a list, checking it twice. People reconsidering their judgment. Their judgment calls on certain situations. Thinking about like how they might have misread maybe the fine print. If you can see, I should have lifted it up first, but I think you can see this card. This is like Santa's hand going over the list of names. And yeah, it's like really considering, like, taking inventory over the whole situation, maybe now blinders off, or coming to a more sober state of mind and perspective, and thinking, wow, this either wasn't, I didn't think this through, or it just went left, way left from what I intended it to be. And now it's kind of out of your hands, more or less. Queen of Candles is the Queen of Wands here with this black cat. It's like it's taking on a life of its own. That's the energy that I'm getting. It's manifested, maybe good intentions, perhaps by way of the Judgment, have now manifested into something a little bit more mystical. Well, a lot more mystical, but perhaps a little bit more sinister, because when you get a load of that cat, now the Queen of Wands, Queen of Candles, of course, herself, especially in the upright, is not nefarious. However, it is a mystical energy, and it is mysterious, and it's one that can't necessarily be contained or controlled. So that's where I get this concept of taking on a life of its own, because if you know how cats can be, they could be all over the place. You try to contain them, and they have almost like they do have a very mystical essence, especially the symbolism of the black cat, which in many ways is much more the opposite in its negative symbolism than it is what do you call it, perceived, but either way, for the sake of the story at hand, it's like you couldn't control what it's going to give, that energy, either way, because it is its own force, So where Jack may have set out to do a thing that wasn't so bad, and could have had, at least a positive outcome for him, what he couldn't control are all the other variables that he entangled himself with in order to get the job done. This could even be somebody, on the very mystical end of this, enlisting magic, whether it be by way of a practitioner, transmitting magical energies or mystical energies through their self, and again, the magic took over, the mysticism took over, and they no longer have control over the direction or the destination or the outcome as much as they would like to. Now it's in the control of the elements, it's in control of whomever was enlisted to support said said um rituals or practice, like whomever somebody may have paid, he paid them to do work for you. You can only give, you can only make a request, but especially when you're dealing with mystical forces, not only can you not completely trust and depend on the integrity of whomever you are soliciting or enlisting, you also can't, they can't even depend on the absolutism of whatever it is that they're conjuring, let's say, or whatever it is they're calling in. They're in submission to the elements. So you might have just had, meaning Jack, you might have just had the intention to have a great transmission of Christmas Town from Halloween energy, like to literally transfuse the two dimensions or transfuse those two energies into one. But somebody else might have had something else in mind. They might have taken your request, your energy by way of your request or your money or your intentions or whatever, and infused that into something perhaps much darker, And now you are just as much attached to that outcome as, he became just as much responsible for the outcome of the disaster of it all, because he's the one that made the request and initiated this process in the first place. So he couldn't really blame Oogie Boogie's henchmen for just being who they are, which is more or less diabolical, like mischievous at least. He couldn't really blame Santa Claus, who was just living his best life, getting prepared to fulfill his purpose. And he couldn't even blame, let's say this is a witch energy or a practitioner energy, for redirecting the initial intention to now suit their own ulterior motives, because that's just what they do. Or can't really blame the mystical forces and energies that are aligned with said practitioner or priestess or whatever it is this queen of the candles is, because they can't control it. The only thing that it really boils back down to, by way of the judgment, is who's naughty and nice, who enacted this plan in the beginning, who agreed with it, who invested in it, who went along with it, who rejected it. Like everybody's name more or less is accounted for in an equal and fair record of exactly what they ultimately created or contributed to whatever we're talking about here, on a large scale to life experience overall, or the creative consciousness overall, and of course on a more practical scale, just in their own day-to-day lives. Nobody gets to blame shift or transfer their transgressions or their tribulations or their karma or their sentence, so to speak, onto anyone else, especially not on account of ignorance. Well, I didn't know. Well, you wouldn't have needed to know if you wouldn't have started this. Your hands would be completely clean, and you'd be innocent if you had not initiated whatever this process is. And some people that have been more or less trying to plead their innocence. I almost said plead the fifth. That's interesting. So some that don't want to admit to their guilt, but they also know that they have no um that they have no what's the word that I'm looking for? They also know that they can't claim innocence either. So they're just wanting to be what's the word? I'm so sorry. I'm struggling for the words right now. When you're neither this or that, it's that line in the middle. Damn, I say this word all the time. It starts with a D. Come on, come on, come on. I hear it. I hear it. I can't catch it. That's annoying me. It'll come up though. I know it will before I end this message. Okay. I hate when that happens. Boy, I hate when that happens. All right, we're getting 2 coming out again. All right, so we got the 8 of Presents, which is like, where we go? The 8 of Pentacles. And then we have the Fool back out again. Yeah, and this is him after going after this new job, pretty much. Where he headed? Straight to Santa's workshop. Straight to Santa's workshop. To where, right to where the magic happens in the movie, more or less. And look at even the stark differences between the cards. That's why I was saying, like, this Fool energy, of course, in the upright, conventionally, is a new beginning. But in the way that we've been speaking of, or I've been speaking of it, it looks very barren, very bland, very dry. Like, this is like that purgatory energy that I'm talking about, where he should have just turned his ass right back around and went home. But he pressed on, found his way into Christmas Town, and couldn't shake the concept, couldn't shake the inspiration, and didn't know how to productively and I can't find that word either. I guess purely organically integrate that inspiration in a way that would make it authentic to him, and it not be an infringement upon someone else's productivity and prosperity. And for him, like, he just thought, well, hell, I just walked up on a gold mine. You know, I just came up. But again, it was just like having eyes bigger than your stomach, in a sense. Like, he couldn't, his eyes, his perception of what he saw was greater than what he really had the capacity, literally, because he considered Santa Claus is more stout, and look how skinny Jack is. He didn't have the capacity to fully withstand and conduct the purpose of Santa Claus. He didn't have the, it wasn't for him. So it couldn't be transferred. It couldn't be transmuted in the way that he could completely take it on as his own identity. It wasn't his destiny. And as I said, these even how, look how green this picture is. Like, the grass looked a lot greener. The gifts looked a lot greener in Santa's workshop. But the gifts back in Halloween Town were actually the ones that were much more suited and aligned for Jack's identity. And he took them for granted. And sometimes we do have to have that full circle moment to kind of go through different phases of finding ourselves, try a little of this, try a little of that, be influenced by this, be influenced by that, all ultimately to come back down to or I should say come back home to, if anything, come back up, but come back home to your organic self. And of course, all of those things can be little nuggets and additives and enhancements to your own personal qualities, but you could never take on somebody else's purpose as yours, let alone somebody's full identity. This is definitely a more specific and mystical case of destiny swapping. Don't like what you got, see something better, and just think, don't mind if I do, help myself. And then once you get into that space, however way you forced and forged your way, you realize that, first of all, it's not all it's cracked up to be. The rewards don't pay out nearly as much as you thought. It's a lot more of a stress and a strain to maintain that frequency that is foreign to you. And you do a lot of damage to people that are depending on the person or the energy that authentically holds that charge to operate in it. And also you leave open where you're supposed to be operating and people are dependent on you. So where people have tried to step into other shoes or sacrifice really precious aspects of themselves for, I don't know, I almost said a brass ring or a wooden nickel in this case, or something like that, or just something that seemed more appealing and intriguing, fascinating, perhaps profitable for sure. They do a disservice to the one that should hold that space, and those that are dependent upon the person to hold it, to activate that energy and disperse it, or dispense it, however it gets to be. And they leave their own spot open because now nobody's actually occupying the space that they were destined to occupy and to operate in. And then nobody wins. And that's what people are realizing. That it was fun while it lasted, perhaps, but even the fun of it all isn't really worth the drama that it came along with. Now I'm gonna get one more and then I'll close it out. Let's see. Hopefully I can get one more, not two. And really it just serves as a cautionary tale for all, which they can be thanked for in some sense. And like I said, everybody's kind of been around the block in this way and at some point in their life, but some wander off again into the abyss or the unknown where they ultimately lose themselves, go deeper and deeper into the debt of whatever they signed their name onto, whatever they attach themselves to, whatever energy they have sacrificed to, and it could get as dark as you could imagine, and of course it could get as practical as you can imagine. And some see the handwriting on the wall and turn their ass around. Like, I came, I saw, I'm good, I'm going back home. You know what I mean? And of course, some never go at all. Some are forever wandering, trying to find that sense of security and confidence and stability just right in their own skin, or lack thereof, as far as Jack is concerned. So I guess, there's a gift to be had on either side of the spectrum, but you just, again, you got to know what to do with it. And look at this. This is the five. Ooh, this is the 5 of potions. That's not a good sign. At first I thought it was the 7, which would be like that, that mysterious, like, unknown, still kind of figure out the best road to take, best choice to make, you know, the lesser of the evils in some cases. So there might be a reason why I saw that anyway, and have spoken on it. Because there could be still some of that where people are still a bit in a daze or a haze about where they are and how they got here. Not to say that that's any more of an excuse or an absolution from what they did to get quote unquote here, but damn it, man. I would like to say F it. I don't care if they fall, but you know I can't. You know I can't. All right, there we go. But the Five of Cups is even more more, I don't know, what's the word for it? Concerning, let's say. More concerning than that, you know? Because the Five of Potions, of course, which is, I think I said, is the Five of Cups. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I read that wrong 2 times. That is the Four of Potions, which is the Four of Cups, which is... What's the Four of Cups? Why can't I see it? The Four of Cups. I see the 5. The 4, the 4, the 4. Every now and again, I have a brain fart about the Four of Cups. Hold on 1 second. Let me see. The Four of Cups, the Four of Cups. Well, obviously, there's a reason. Like, I would say, if anything, somebody could be in danger of the Four of Cups if they, you know, if those that don't wake up and, like I said, find their way back home or back to their cells or their body. That's the, of course, the Five of Cups. Sadness, depression, despair. The 4, damn it, I'm so sorry. And I know I'm gonna be like, come on, Danae, like, for real. Like, you don't know the damn Four of Cups. That's the 7, the mystery, the mystique. Damn, and it's got to be all the way at the end at that somewhere, because I ain't come across it yet. Or did I? Did I pass it? Four of Cups. Okay, come on. The Four of Cups. Now you're trying to make a fool out of me? Oh, here it is. There we go. It was in the front. I just passed it. Four of Cups. Duh. Yes, of course, I do know that energy very well. That's pretty much like that rejection, regret, missed opportunity, which kind of aligns. Like I said, if somebody doesn't shape up and first of all recognize what's right in front of them, or what they forfeited or left behind or took for granted, or declined, said no to, of which may or may not be retrievable or reclaimable at this time. So there's no guarantee if there's something that can be reclaimed of which you said no thank you to. But it's the acknowledgement, the awareness and the acknowledgement is still a saving grace. You know, literally, as in the traditional deck, it's like the Ace of Cups is being offered to you, and you like, nah, I'm good. I want these over here. I'm good on that. You know, so it's like somebody just realizing where they may have been misled, or may have even misled themselves, you know, or their perspective may have been a bit jaded, is enough to turn things around in a better direction, you know, because otherwise you could just continue to press on down this path of darkness until ultimately you just become one of these guys, the Five of Candles, one of Oogie Boogie's henchmen. And that's nowhere near, your identity. Like Jack was more or less like a king in his town, definitely highly respected, revered, admired, abundant in his own right, gifted and talented in his own way. He had a whole lot to show for his true identity, and to exchange that for such a demotion as this, trying to be this, trying to be, something he's not, that's really a sin and a shame. Literally a sin and a shame. And I mean that in the most inflammatory way and the most primitive way possible. So this is really like, some being urged to wake up, smell the coffee. Like, even though they can see the handwriting on the wall, like, will you read it and follow the direction, and really follow where it's leading you to, which is away from darkness, away from chaos and internal conflict, if nothing else. There's something more enlightening available. But like I said, whether or not you could turn around and reclaim everything that you lost still remains to be seen. But at least, as I say, you'll have your soul. You will have your soul. And that's priceless and precious. There's no price or reward that you could put on possession of your own soul at this point. So for some, in the most mystical sense, it literally could be connecting from these energies that people have entangled themselves with, denouncing it, renouncing it, cutting cords and ties, cease associations, stop certain pursuits, particularly of a diet. Like if you're trying to pursue something that is ultimately out of your reach, and it's been reverberated back to you over and over again that this is not for you, this is not your destiny, this is not your lane, this is not your purpose, and you just keep on grabbing for it no matter how many times your hand is being smacked back or you're being struck down. There is a such thing as like determination and diligence for things that you just know you're aligned to have or do or be. And I'm not speaking against that, like, oh, well, it ain't work out, I guess it wasn't for me then. I'm talking about people that have been going at a certain thing that they know good and damn well. Like Jack knew good and damn well that he ain't had no business in Christmas Town. He knew good and damn well that even if after he got up in there, that he ain't had no business in a Santa suit. He couldn't even fit a Santa suit. He had to get another janky one made, a knockoff bootleg one made. There's people trying to fit into all types of shoes and personas and identities that they have to literally squeeze themselves or stretch themselves into the mold of. And that just ain't divine. It ain't never going to be. It never was, and it ain't never going to be. No matter how ambitious or how driven you are to insist it be so. It's just the more you push, the more you'll take damage. You'll do damage to yourself, and again, to those that should be so affected and impressed by someone that deserves to be in the spot, and by those that you have deserted on account of the abandonment of your own identity and your own purpose. So, and the divine ain't really gonna stand behind that. Not at all. If anything, in this season, it's an intensified path of obstacles and conflict and roadblocks and backfires that await those that just continue to insist on barreling down a path that they don't belong in. You'll never really reach that destination, truly. And even if you step foot there, you'll never feel like you belong. You'll always feel like an imposter or an intruder. And you can't fully operate in your creativity feeling like an imposter and actually being one. Not the imposter syndrome where, you just can't really grasp your greatness. I'm talking about the one where you know that you can't do what you're doing, or you're not who you're projecting yourself to be, and you shouldn't have what you've obtained on account of it. Judgment is here for all that. Indeed. All right, so let's see what we got. The 9 of Candles. Yeah, that's like that wounded warrior energy. Yeah, it's just you may land on your feet, but you're going to get beat down in the process. And those again that have lived to tell the story, i.e. such as like, those that witness the outcome of certain artists, the bad boy, and they still sign on the dotted line. You come out pretty bruised and battered. Thankfully, you have a testimony. Thankfully, like I said, you're still standing. But at what cost? At what detriment to your well-being? People that have, I ain't even gonna call no names, but we've seen some come out now and tell their stories, and you never know like what's true and what's authentic. But I know for a fact that some that I have encountered personally, very intimately, I can vouch for the aftermath and the after effect of being in that camp. I can vouch for the witness of all of that, of those experiences, and how it can affect your emotional state, your mental state, your confidence about yourself, your career, your creative career for the rest of your life, whether it's in a practical way where you're damn near blackballed and can't work with anybody else, or you're just so overwrought with stress and trauma that you can't even really perform in your organic creativity without a lot of work being done to kind of bring you back to your whole self. And some never get back to it. Some never get back. For some, there's always a little piece of their soul that still is, at least feels possessed by that time, that power, that influence, that contract. It's like candles, like these candles look pretty. They're burning, they're still giving light, but they look pretty frail, pretty burnt, run down, Definitely not burning as vibrantly as they were when they were innocent and just stepping into the game. So it's just like, it's a cautionary tale, not just for those that are in the thick of really rerouting their righteousness, so to speak, but also for those that have committed or devoted themselves to a righteous path to stay on it, because we can all be rerouted and detoured and distracted in the blink of an eye just by holding the right little shiny coin or whatever your what do you call it, temptation may be, and in the pure sense, your temptation. Even Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, according to the text. So it's like whatever your temptation may be, we are all as vulnerable as that much, without having a strong will and a steady sense of self and a clear vision of our purpose and our direction in life, knowing like, no, I can't take it that way. I can't go about it that way. That sounds good. The money looks good. The perks sound amazing, but I can't sign on to this company. It goes against my integrity to align with these characters. It goes against my morals and standards to operate in this function, to present myself this way, to stoop to these dark dark methods and means and intentions just to have this so-called ideal outcome. No, it's got to be a no. It's got to be a strong no. From now until the end of your days, it's a strong no. Unapologetically. With the Four of Candles, that's the Four of Wands. Look at this. Vampires. That just disrupted my whole alignment on this board. Just me putting that one card down says enough. But the Four of Wands is, now I'm drawing a blank on that. Four of Wands. Five of Wands is this, the conflict. The Four of Wands. Damn it, I gotta look again. But just off of face value, I mean, come on, it's like literally 4 bloodsuckers here. So you think over top of this Christmas tree, this big bag of gifts, you think you're signing the deal of a lifetime, unprecedented, never gonna have this opportunity again, once in a lifetime opportunity. The biggest company in the game, the biggest contract in the game, the most prestigious individuals on the map, the most powerful forces in the world or in the country or whatever. Insert ... here. Whatever it is. And all they come down to is just some bloodsuckers, parasites, users, culture vultures, demons. You know, not to hate on the poor vampires in the movie, because they were in their element. You know, they were in their element in Halloween Town, and it was no shade, no tea, no shade. But when you integrate yourself with that frequency and it's foreign to you, this is the depiction of what you're selling your soul to and what's being harvested, which is your light, the best of your light. Hold on, I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I don't confirm the Four of Wands. That's the Three of Wands. That's the 2. The 8. The 7. Everything but the 10. Everything but the 4 is like hidden in the deck. Like the last thing you would think. The last outcome you would. And it could be the faces of people. Okay, wow. And this is what? The home card. Ooh, I was about to say. And look what else was under there as I was about to put the deck to the side. This is what it's headed for. The last folks that you would think would not have your best interest at heart, because they've either made you so many promises, or they have no interest in scamming me or robbing me or using me. They got enough of their own. What's my little light to this group or this crew or this power, this association or corporation? I just heard it. Where'd you go? This coven is what I heard in the dark sense. This coven, what could they really possibly need of little old me that is that they wouldn't be willing to let go? But that's how power is maintained and infused, by really having no mercy on whomever they get their grips around or get their clutches into. It's like they're gonna suck you dry until the life is out of you and you dead just like them. You'll be completely transformed to a totally different entity, unrecognizable even to yourself, by the time they get done with you, if you stay within their clutches and in their possession. But it reads like this, the Four of Wands. Like, yeah, everything's great over here. Come on in. You found your people. You made it home. You finally made it. You crossed the finish line. You succeeded. this is, you know, the highest level of success and satisfaction, more or less. Like it feels like a great achievement to say yes or to accomplish things in the way that some have gone about it, or with the associations and support systems that they have entangled themselves with. But in the end, it's just a secret society of bloodsuckers. On the highest scale, on the lowest scale, on the highest frequency, on the lowest frequency, on in a way that seems far away from you, that they wouldn't even be thinking about you, little old you, and in the people that are closest to you, i.e. family or your partner, that you would never think would just be in it to use and abuse you. But when you're out of alignment, that's exactly what you make yourself vulnerable and susceptible to. And it won't be nobody's fault but your own. It won't be nobody to blame but yourself. So a word to all of us, it's always better at home in your own skin. Sure, make all the enhancements and adjustments and upgrades that you see fit to do so, but make sure it's true to you. Nobody else's face, nobody else's gifts, nobody else's creativity, power, purpose, walk, ideas, none of that. Visions, life. Some people try to take people's whole lives out here, just insert themselves into some fortune, into other people's fortune. And my brother, you've got to get your own. In the famous words of the scene in House Party, go figure. You got to get your own and be at home where you belong. All right. So anyway, that was fun. All right. I'm going to leave it there though, because I definitely went way over time. But these cards and my Game of Thrones cards, they always take me there. Like, and I love wherever they go. I follow wherever they lead willingly. So I hope that you were at least, intrigued by the cards and the characters and such. Definitely recommend you watch the movie. You'll probably see it from a different perspective now if you've never seen it before, or even if you have, you'll see something different. And 'tis the season anyway, why not? Reach a little bit in your dark bag for a quick second, but don't stay too long. Don't stay too long. Get in and get out. And make sure you integrate that energy in the frequency of light, if at all possible. And if not, well, then you on your own with that, because I can't help you. But anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I leave you with peace.